I've started the audio recording and I can share it with you later if you want.
Oh, great, great. I'll ask. But please do remind me. I'll probably forget.
Okay. Uh, so I think I'll be here for about an hour or slightly less than that, but I think that should be sufficient time to cover this topic. Uh, I was going to ask, should we start now? Hello?
For sure, but maybe we should clarify that, like, we're debating whether or not God exists, and um, right, you're taking the affirmative, whereas I'm being agnostic, just to say, you know, I don't believe one way or the other, and I don't believe that God does exist, and I don't believe, also don't believe that God doesn't exist. That's kind of my position. Is that like pretty clear so far, or
Yeah, I understand your position, I think. So my
yeah?
my position is that I do believe God exists, and I believe that Islam is the religion from God, and maybe we can discuss the second part in our later debate. But for now, we should just focus on the existence of God. So, do you want to start or should I start? Hello. Uh,
Wait, is my audio okay?
yes, it is. I think it
Am I
cut off.
audible?
Yes, yes.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say you can go first, and I'll respond if I have something to say. Yeah.
Okay, sure. So we are debating the existence of God. Before we get into more details regarding this, I will just give a basic definition of God that I think at least most people will agree with. God is an intelligent, powerful, eternal creator who has a will. This is just a simple classic definition of God, although there can be differences.
Sorry, could you repeat that? Sorry to interrupt you, but could you repeat that? God is an intelligent.
God is an intelligent, powerful, eternal creator who has a will. Will means an ability to choose or do things. Uh, Muslim hacker,
Gotcha.
this is supposed to be a 1v1 discussion. So you can stare, but only me and Dark Loon will be talking. Uh, Dark Loon, are you clear on the definition?
Yep, yep.
Okay. So before I get into the arguments for God, I will mention two things that are often used as justification and evidence by both theists and atheists. These are intuitions and Occam's razor. An intuition is just an instinctive feeling that we have or something that seems obvious or seems true. Just to give two examples of intuitions, first premise of problem of evil, that a good God would not create a world with unnecessary suffering. This is just an intuition, it's just an instinctive belief we have. Uh, it cannot be proven or disproven. In many cases, intuitions cannot be proven or disproven. Other type of intuition would be parts of something cannot be greater than a whole. These are something we just instinctively and obviously believe. This is an example of intuitions. Occam's razor basically mean the simplest explanation or the explanation that explains the most data by itself is the explanation that should be preferred. Now, when atheists or theists are using intuitions, they would usually take intuitions or Occam's razor. They will take the position that the person arguing against intuitions or Occam's razor has the burden of proof. Now, the first argument I will use, just this is just a definitional clarification that I thought was necessary. The first argument for existence of God I will use is the Kalam cosmological argument. And they are just two simple premises that get us to a cause of the universe. Whatever begins to exist has a cause, the universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. We can get into the definition of or the properties or attributes of the cause in a moment later. But just to give a basic definition of the Kalam, explanation of the Kalam, and why the earlier point regarding intuitions and Occam's razor is relevant. If we are using intuitions as evidence, right, then premise one of the Kalam is clearly intuitive. People naturally believe that something cannot come from nothing or that whatever begins to exist has a cause. No one in their right mind will deny that this is something intuitive, right? As far as premise 2 is concerned infinity and most of the infinity paradoxes, all of them are counterintuitive. This is something even atheists themselves admit. For instance, if you watch the Kalam documentaries made by eminent atheist scientists and philosophers, they themselves are admitting that the infinity paradoxes or the consequences of infinity are counterintuitive. But there's an important point to remember here. Not only are these counterintuitive, not only is the premise 1 and 2 of the Kalam counterintuitive, but the simple fact is that they are also supported with Occam's razor as well. We have no experience or knowledge of anything coming into existence uncaused or anything happening without a cause. So premise 1 of the Kalam is also supported by Occam's razor. As far as premise 2 is concerned, it is also supported by Occam's razor because there is no scientific evidence or evidence of any kind in general of actual infinity. This is something that even mainstream scientists, atheist scientists and philosophers will admit. And I can give a reference for this. For instance, in the second Kalam documentary, it's a famous documentary made by an atheist YouTuber named Skydive Phil. He brought eminent atheist scientists and philosophers, and they themselves admitted there is no scientific evidence for infinity. So, just going by whether we use intuition as evidence or Occam's razor as evidence, premise 1 and 2 of the Kalam are clearly supported, and like the burden of proof is on the person arguing against these premises. If premise 1 and 2 are true, then the universe has a cause. This is just my first point regarding the Kalam, an initial point. You can respond, and then we can move the debate along. You can respond now.
Okay, so in the chat I posted the premises and the conclusion of the Kalam cosmological argument, and I'm aware of sort of dialectic, some of the responses I could give, but just to go over some things you said, I'm fine with like the working definition of God that you gave, so that's fine. As far as intuitions talk, one issue I have is that you said P1, so the first premise is intuitive. But my question is, like, intuitive to whom, right? Because whether or not it's intuitive is sort of a matter of, like, interpretation. It's going to differ from person to person, right? So you have to clarify that maybe you want to say it's intuitive to most theists, it's intuitive to, I don't know, to yourself, right? Like, you can speak for yourself, but to me, honestly, I wouldn't say that either of these premises are intuitive or counterintuitive, but I get sort of the point you're trying to make with the burden of proof that, okay, well actually, we could have a whole meta conversation about who has the burden of proof, but basically, I'm not convinced of P1 as well as like P2. I'm also not convinced. I'd like to see an argument for both of these. But I agree with you that you did say something like you have no experience of something being uncaused. I mean, maybe I'd have to think about that, but on the face of it, yeah, that seems true. Also, you said there's no actual infinity. I'm not sure what you meant by that, but basically, my whole thing is I'm not convinced of either premise, and I have to see like an argument. Basically, I don't. So the only quote-unquote argument you gave is that it's intuitive to you, and what I can say is it's not intuitive to me, I guess. But you know, it doesn't. We can't go anywhere with just saying by appealing to our intuitions, right? So yeah, I guess that's my response. I kind of went all over the place, but I hope I tried to hit every point that you made also as well. So go ahead.
Okay, I'll address the point about
The video
intuitions in a moment. First, I'll address one of the other things you said. You said that my argument was that these are intuitions and therefore, like, burden of proof is arguing against them. Actually, that is not exactly what I said. I said whether someone uses intuitions as evidence or Occam's razor as evidence. Either way, the burden of proof would be on the person arguing against these things. Secondly, you mentioned the point about infinity and actual infinity. if the universe did not begin to exist, right? If it's not past finite, it did not begin to exist, then it's infinite. No one will deny that. The reference I gave is from actually a famous atheist documentary made by eminent atheist philosophers and scientists. They are mentioned there. I think it's on the 23-minute mark in this video, where I think the scientist's name is Nayesh Afshordi, something like that. He's a scientist in Canada or Belgium, I think. They are admitting that there is no scientific evidence for actual infinity. So that was my point regarding evidence and burden of proof. It's not just based on intuitions, it's based on Occam's razor as well. Secondly, you said that whose intuitions? I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring that up later as well. There are generally two types of intuitions. Some are pretty universal among humans throughout history, right? And even now, like they are independent of culture and upbringing. Example would be the two intuitions I mentioned earlier. Another example would be of another type of intuition is a subjective intuition, which changes from person to person. An example is, can God create without time? Some people believe he can, some people believe he can't. Either way, there is nothing universal about it. It's an intuition which changes from person to person. So this was the point I was going to bring it up. Now let me get to your point that you don't find these things intuition, the premises regarding Kalam, intuitions or evidence. Here is the problem for the atheist claim, and here or the agnostic claim, and basically all of the points you relating to problem of evil and the common atheist arguments. Problem of evil, from start to finish, it's based on intuitions. Every single atheist argument from start to finish is based on intuitions. Most of the arguments given for evolution, such as the bad design argument, vestigial organs or junk DNA arguments, and etc., all of them are based on intuitions. You don't have to take intuitions as evidence, but if you do not consider intuitions as evidence, you cannot use them for your own arguments. And if you are not and if you are not accepting the premises of the Kalam, for instance, and you are accepting the premises of problem of evil, you are just cherry picking which intuitions you like and which intuitions you dislike. That's not evidence, that's not something
I think
rational.
there's some
Let me
audio
finish
issue.
this point.
I don't know if it's me, but
Dark
uh,
let me finish this point, then you can respond. So that is the basic point regarding intuitions being as evidence. You don't have to take them as evidence, but if you are not taking them as evidence, you cannot use them when you feel like as well. Firstly, secondly, the premises of the Kalam and of the most theist arguments, such as fine-tuning, contingency, etc., all of them are supported by intuitions as well as Occam's razor. They are simplest explanation of our evidence. Now you can respond.
I had a bit of trouble hearing you, the last part, but I got your point, right? You want to talk about intuitions. I'll just say, I'm fine. I'm fine with granting that intuitions, like, I'm fine with saying that you're justified in believing these propositions based on your intuitions, and that's fine. But I have a sort of view where, like, my intuitions don't justify believing in those propositions, right? So, like, I don't know how to put this, but like, I'm fine with granting that you have this view of intuitions where you're justified in believing it, and that's fine. But it's not gonna move me in any way in terms of how I evaluate those propositions. I hope that's clear. But right. You did say something that bugged me. Also, yeah, right. On the intuition talk, you said, I'm also willing to say that, if you think most people today share this intuition, or if you think most educated people find it intuitively true, I would say, like, assuming that that's true, right? Let's say P1 is believed by like 99% of people. I could say that's some evidence in favor of like P1, right? So if you had said couched it in a way where most people believe this, right? That could be some form of evidence. But if you're just saying, right, like, my intuitions is that it's true, so therefore, you must believe that it's true, like, that's not gonna move me in any way. And also, I'll post in the chat, but oh, sorry, let me edit this. But basically, I want to cut to the chase, and you think that the universe couldn't have had an infinite past, right? and I don't see the argument for this. Like, I don't see why it would be impossible. I'm open to the universe having an infinite past. I think that's could be our main disagreement, right? So if you convince me of this, I would probably be convinced of P2. That's the second premise. So I'm still not convinced of P1 either, because right. I wanted to hit this too. P1, most supporting arguments for P1 assume some form of the PSR, the principle of sufficient reason. I don't know if you've mentioned that before, but right, I'm not convinced of the PSR either. Like, if you believe in strong PSR or weak PSR, you have to convince me of that also. So like, I want an argument for P2 and an argument for P1 as well. Argument for P2 is going to be some kind of about an infinite past being impossible, or right. You also mentioned the paradoxes about, like, we could do a whole deep dive, but honestly, just disclaim that the universe couldn't have had an infinite past. Give me the argument for that, and that'll be like, you know, like 50% of the debate could just be you giving the argument for this. Right, I have nothing to add, I think. Also, you had some audio issues, like the last part. I know if it was just me, but I couldn't hear the last thing you were saying.
It was with me as well.
Sorry?
He said that.
Was it on my end or on your end too?
He said that he couldn't hear the last part as well. I'll elaborate on that after addressing the points you made here. So, in basically your the entire part of when you were speaking, you were saying that I need to convince you of these things, and it seems to assume that I have some sort of burden of proof. I don't think I do. In fact, in the case of the
sorry, could I interrupt you there for a second? Sorry, Amar. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you say you need to convince you or something, right? Like, that's just like need, or like you need to do this. I when I interpret that, it's with respect to a given goal, and so like if you want to persuade me, right? If your goal is persuading me or something like that, then yeah, sure, you could give me a sound argument. That's a sort of way I would put it. I'm not like, forcing you or anything, right? Like, I'm not saying like,
course, I mean,
like this whole burden of proof talk is not interesting to me.
Let me just finish my point regarding this, and then you can respond.
Okay. Go ahead.
I don't think that what I was saying was that you are forcing me, or that, like, in a literal sense, but I think that the general assumption among atheists and agnostics is that the burden of proof is on the theist, and this claim is just baseless. Now, I'll address the point you made regarding intuitions. You said that I am saying that you should accept these things because they are my intuitions. I did not say that. In fact, from the start, I've said this point again and again. And
wait. Sorry to interrupt, but that's misinterpretation. Misrepresentation. I didn't mean to imply that is your position, right? I'm just saying, like, if you were to say this, it's wholly uninteresting. It's not gonna sway me one way or the other, right? I didn't mean to like imply
in
that.
In this regard, what you should have done is that you should address what I said instead of what I should, or maybe if I said that, it wouldn't be convincing. Let me just repeat what I said and address some of your points.
Could you repeat that? I didn't catch. Could you repeat that?
I said that instead of how I maybe am putting or should be putting my argument, right? Instead of doing that, you should have just addressed what I literally said. Now, just let me.
Did I not address what you say? Sorry, did I not address what you said?
I don't think you did, and I'll explain why you did not address. I said after you were talking, I said that the point regarding intuitions, and that my intuitions would not be convincing you, right? You said that this is not exactly what I was saying, but this is a misrepresentation. I was addressing your point about this being a misrepresentation. So just let me speak for a few minutes, right? Let me address those points, and after that you can respond. Sure?
Sure.
Okay. So regarding the points about intuitions, I mentioned the distinction between universal intuitions and subjective intuitions. I don't think you exactly addressed that. You tried to, but I think you like changed the point in the middle of it. But I did not think you addressed that. Let's just I'll try to make another point that I think I made before. My arguments are not just based on intuitions, they are also based on Occam's razor. Premise 1 of the Kalam is based on Occam's razor, so is premise 2, and for that matter, so is the PSR. If you are taking Occam's razor as evidence, for instance, many atheists will try to use it in case for evolution or in their appeal to the burden of proof being on the theist. They will use Occam's razor as evidence. The point I'm making is there needs to be consistency. You cannot use Occam's razor when you feel like it and discard it when you don't feel like it. There needs to be consistency in this regard. Secondly, I made a point regarding intuitions, and you said that these are not particularly your intuitions. Well, if you ask most people, this they will also say that something coming from nothing is counterintuitive. This is common sense. No one in their right mind will deny this, and there is no experience for this. So this is both supported by intuitions and Occam's razor. As far as the infinity arguments are concerned, they are actually counterintuitive, and this is not something that I am just making up. Even atheist philosophers and scientists will admit that it's counterintuitive. It's not something subjective. Now, here is a point on which you can actually ignore intuitions. My argument does not depend on intuitions. It is based on experience as well. There is no evidence, scientific evidence of actual infinity. You are saying that I need to prove that past cannot be past infinite. But if there is no scientific evidence for actual infinity, and you are saying that the past can be actually infinite, you have the burden of proof in that regard. There needs to be some consistency in regards to burden of proof. And by the way, so that's just my point regarding all of these things. Lastly, when it comes to problem of evil, when it comes to most of the arguments for evolution or the things that you choose to believe, right? All of them are from start to finish based on intuitions. They are just your feelings. You don't have to take intuitions as evidence, but you cannot say my beliefs are proven, such as problem of evil is proven or the junk DNA argument is proven because of intuitions. What I need from atheists is for them to be consistent. Either use their intuitions as evidence or don't use them as evidence. Either use Occam's razor as evidence or don't use Occam's razor as evidence. And just to address one point regarding Occam's razor which you have not addressed so far. Kalam cosmological argument, both its premises, principle of sufficient reason.
Wait, could you just slow down a bit, sorry. There's a lot there that I kind of want to address. Like, is this the last point that you're going on?
Yes, this is my last point. This is my last point, and after that you can address it. Both premises of the Kalam, principle of sufficient reason, even life being designed, most of these things can be proven using Occam's razor. If you are using Occam's razor as evidence, and then you need to have the burden of proof at least when you argue against these things. What I want is consistency. You can respond.
So, am I right in saying that? So, I want to be clear that, like, make sure that I'm understanding you correctly, right? Your argument for both premises, for both P1 and P2, is Occam's razor and was it intuitions, right? Those are the two arguments you have for P1 and P2.
I would say that pretty much any atheist or any theist for any of their arguments either have intuitions or Occam's razor. The thing about these arguments and most arguments for God is that they are proven by both intuitions and Occam's razor. So that would be my response.
Let's just stick to P1, for example. Let's just stick to one. Whatever begins to exist has a cause, right? If I ask you, like, do you have an argument for P1? Would your answer be yes or no?
Well, I would say that our experience is an argument, but I would also say the burden of proof is on the atheist in this regard, or person arguing against premise 1.
Who is our? Wait. Who is our? What? Are you talking about humans generally?
Yes.
Or
So whose intuitions
okay,
are we
so
talking about?
humans generally.
Darkloon, when you use an argument, right, such as problem of evil, because you seem to think that's a convincing argument, whose intuitions are you using? Are you using humans' intuitions or
I
some
didn't,
other
I didn't,
animals'
I didn't
intuitions?
mention anything about problem of evil, but I was just
That is
trying
the
to clarify.
argument
Okay,
you wanted
so
to debate, right? Problem of evil is the argument you said you wanted to discuss in this debate.
right, yeah, we can get to that. We can get to that, but you just presented an argument and like want to be convinced of like the P1 and P2, right? So you mentioned that
Darkroom,
humans
just
generally,
let me make one point. My
right?
goal, primary goal, is not for you to be convinced of my beliefs. My goal is for atheists and agnostics to have a consistent epistemology. I want you to either accept intuitions as evidence or don't. Use Occam's razor as evidence or not. That is something I would like to happen. Like, I don't care whether you accept God
Do
or
you
not,
think?
accept Islam or not. My goal is for you to have a consistent epistemology. You can respond.
Well, there's a few things there, but that I kind of want to go over. Because that's the second time that you've suggested there's an inconsistency on my view in virtue of me being agnostic or something. Do you think I'm contradicting myself in some way, or what do you mean?
My view is that most atheists and agnostics, including you, are inconsistent in their application of intuitions as evidence and Occam's razor as evidence, and for that matter, the appeal to possibility as evidence. Like,
What
I
what
think you are inconsistent
what's the
in this.
inconsistency?
Here's the.
What's the inconsistency that
Let me
I'm
explain
committed
what's
to?
the inconsistency. Uh, Premise 1 of the
Sorry.
Kalam, premise 2 of the Kalam are recognized as intuitive by most people. So are the premises of premise 1 of problem of evil. You are using accepting one thing, problem of evil, and you are rejecting intuitions here. You are cherry picking which intuitions you like and which intuitions you dislike. And this is the same thing atheists do with Occam's razor. Like, I could have a field day explaining the inconsistency of atheists with regards to Occam's razor. This is the specific point you are being inconsistent in. You are using intuitions when you feel like
I'm
it in terms of problem of evil, and you are rejecting intuitions when you feel like it in terms of kalam and contingency, etc. You can respond.
so by inconsistency you mean there's some kind of contradiction on my view? Yeah, like in a way, I'm applying my epistemic standards inconsistently. So what do you think my epistemic standards are? How do you think that I'm applying them? Like, so sorry, let me back up. Your belief is that I'm applying my epistemic standards inconsistently, right?
Yes.
And what do you think my epistemic standards are
Well,
in the first place?
since I have not done a detailed interview of you, I can only guess your epistemic standards by our interactions. And in our interactions, you mentioned the problem of evil as an argument you want to discuss, and as an argument you think it's compelling, or at least it seems like you're saying it's compelling. The problem of evil from start to finish is based on intuitions. So if you are using that as an argument, while I cannot tell everything about your epistemology, I can certainly tell one thing. You think intuitions are evidence.
I think intuitions are evidence. Um, I mean, I think they're evidence in some sense, right? Like that statement is a bit vague, but so my epistemic standards are such that
Can I ask you one
intuitions
question?
are evidence in some context, right? I mean, yeah, I'm fine with saying intuitions can, you know, justify your beliefs in some context, right? I've never stated otherwise, so I don't think there's any inconsistency on my view.
I
I
think
mean,
it is.
unless you want to
Can
like
I just ask
enlighten
you
me,
one
but
question? If you are not taking
right?
it,
Sorry.
can I just ask one question?
Yeah, go ahead.
If you are not using intuitions as evidence, how are you going to prove premise 1 and premise 2 of the problem of evil, or any of the premises of problem of evil, other than the conclusion? Because all of them from start to finish are based on intuitions.
You have to ask me that in order to. Sorry, do you have to ask me that in order to give me the inconsistency on my view?
I think this question will expose the inconsistency of your view because problem of evil from start to finish is
How?
based on intuitions. That's all.
Problem of evil from start to finish is based on intuition. What does that even mean? What does that mean?
Do we agree on the definition of intuitions? Because I can just read the definition from a
I
dictionary
view
here.
intuition. Sorry?
I'm
It's
just
like a pre-reflective belief before doing any kind of reflections.
Yeah.
Sort of, right?
okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can agree on definition of intuitions, right? I have a question for you. How do you prove any of the premises of problem of evil? Because it is an argument, it has certain premises, right? Can you prove any of them other than by appealing to intuitions? Like, can you prove there is unnecessary or purposeless suffering in the world?
Well, the premises of the argument, you mean?
Yes, can you prove any of them without using intuitions?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sure. Absolutely. Like the first premise can be analytically true, just true by definition.
Can you prove that? You're just saying that, but can you give evidence of that? Can you justify your claim here?
What do you mean evidence of that? Do you know what it means
premise,
to say that it's
give
true
me premise
by
one
definition?
of the problem of evil. Darkloon, give me the premise one or some of the premises of the problem of evil that you think are true by definition. Go ahead.
But I'm saying, right, a premise could be just true by definition.
Show me that premise of the premises of problem of evil are true by definition. Can you show that to me? Can you argue that?
Sorry?
Can you show me that the premises of problem of evil are true by definition? You are saying that premises
could you
of problem
repeat that? Your audio is cutting.
Okay, I'll repeat. You are saying that premises of problem of evil are true by definition. Like, can you give an argument for that? Can you explain to me that? Can you explain that the premises are like how are they true by definition? Like other than by assuming it, because so far you have not even mentioned one premise of the problem of evil.
How are they true by definition? I'm not sure what you're asking. You're asking what it means to say that something is true by definition, or
I am saying you are making a claim. You are saying that premises of problem of evil are true by definition. Can you prove this claim? Because I don't think they are.
One premise is true by definition.
What?
One premise is true by definition.
Which one?
I'm saying one premise is true by definition.
Which one?
Like, on some versions of the problem of evil, for example, William Rose, like rendition of the argument. I'll post the. I had this in the chat. I don't know if you can see it, but this premise is just true by definition. This is the concept. What I mean, based on what it means to have these omni properties, it follows just analytically. But the concept as this, entailment, just saying the concept, it has this entailment. You can't have it out the like you can't have one without the other, right? Did you see
I don't think that's the case. Let me explain why. There is an assumption in the problem. I don't think this is the case, or this is something that's necessarily true, and I'll give a very simple reason why. Let me explain why.
Different definition. Maybe you're using a different definition. That's fine. I'm just saying.
I'm saying your claim is wrong. I'm saying
what?
I'm saying your claim is wrong. The premises you are bringing of the about problem of evil are not like necessarily true or true by definition, and I'll explain why it's the case. All versions of problem of evil.
Wait, how?
Let me make this. I'll make give me 10 seconds and I'll explain why. Give me 10 seconds. It's so easy. That's how easily I can explain. All versions of problem of evil assume, at the very least, that suffering or unnecessary suffering or
Wait,
purposeless
talk about
suffering.
this premise. Wait. Consider an example. I'll talk about this premise. Do you see the example I have here?
Yes, I've read it, and it's making
Just
an
analytically
assumption.
true.
Would you like me to read this particular premise?
I mean, if you want, but like,
There,
do you see how it's can you see at least how it's true by definition, or is it like too far? Like, is the concept too alien to you? Like, it's it being true by definition.
no, it's not. Uh, I'll explain the problem
Okay,
with it. It's
that's all
actually
I'm
Dark
trying
Loon.
to.
Dark Loon, give me 10 seconds and I'll explain the problem with this claim.
The problem with what claim?
The particular statement that you have posted here. Give me 10 seconds and I'll explain the problem with it. It's that simple.
The problem is that you're using different semantics.
No,
and
I'm
I'm
not
saying that's
using. This
fine.
is not
You're
an
using a
issue of
different, you're a
semantics.
different
Dark Loon.
understanding of.
This is not an issue of semantics. Give me 10 seconds and I'll explain the problem with this. You can give me 10 seconds, right?
Go ahead.
The first part of this
Go
is
ahead.
there exist instances of evil. How do we know evil exists?
Sorry?
Can I get 10 seconds without interruption?
Okay, I just had trouble hearing. Go ahead.
Okay. The first part of this reads, there exist instances of evil. How do we know evil exists? Like you can see something, for instance, a woman getting raped. How do you know that's evil? That claim is based entirely on intuitions. That's just a feeling you have regarding a woman getting raped. This is not something you can prove or disprove. That is just your intuitions regarding it.
Can I respond to that? Can I respond to that?
Let me finish this point. Let me just finish this point, then you can respond. This claim regarding the evil existing, that is start to finish based on intuitions. You cannot prove these things, and if intuitions are not evidence in case of Kalam, fine-tuning, PSR, in all those cases, then intuitions are not evidence here as well. Go ahead, you can respond.
Well, the question you raised about how do we know that this is an instance of evil, that's an epistemic question, right? I mean, I just don't see the relevance of you saying that.
And intuitions, it's all epistemic questions. Like it's entirely epistemic.
I didn't catch that.
The point regarding burden of proof,
just
regarding
what we take
question. As evidence, all of it is epistemic. Like you are saying, this is epistemic, and this is supposedly something different.
Right, but it's not relevant. It's not relevant to whether or not, like, on a given definition, this is true. This premise is true, right? Like, certainly you can agree with that.
If I take your definition of
based on the understanding,
Dark Loon, for your argument to work, right? For your argument to succeed or to be evidence, it's not just it has to be true on your definition. You have to give a reason why your definition is rational. And for your argument, all you have is
well, let's just say, like most, Western analytic philosophers today would subscribe to this definition, right? Let's just grant that for the sake of argument, right? Right, and if someone presented this our premise in an argument, they could say, yeah, it's analytically true. That's all I'm saying. Like, you tried to say that all the premises have to be supported by intuitions or something like that. I'm just saying, well, that's not true. You can support it by just having a definition, like having it definitionally true.
I think you're wrong in this.
And also,
there's a very simple reason why. There's a very simple reason why.
I don't understand what the hang-up is.
Let me explain that. It's actually really simple. If this this particular premise that you mentioned, it is assuming evil exists. It's literally assuming it's saying there exist instances of evil. It's not saying there could exist instances of evil, implying that it's possible. It's saying there exist instances of evil. This is a factual claim. This is making that you are believing.
Oh, sorry. That's my sorry. My bad. I don't premise. I was the wrong premise. Sorry. This is totally on me. This is totally on me. I posted the wrong premise. Yeah, this this is the one I posted first. That's supposed to be the second premise, but that's the empirical claim about there being instances of evil, which I don't yeah. So okay, do you see the second one I posted here about
Yes, I read it.
what an
An
omniscient holy good being
omniscient
would do?
holy good being would prevent the occurrence of any evil it could, unless it could not do so without thereby losing some greater good or permitting some evil equally bad or worse. I would say that this statement itself is based on intuitions, and I will explain one intuition it's based on. Other than that, there is
What?
no issue with it.
No, it's just
Yes, it
definitionally
is.
true.
Let me
It's
explain.
based on the concept of omniscience and omnibenevolence being tied together, right?
Let me explain the problem, and I'll just take 10 seconds. The problem is this is assuming that if there's a good being, part of being good is preventing evil. This is an intuition. You can say it's a pretty
Right.
universal or obvious intuition, but it is still an intuition. You can't say it's not, it's just another
Um,
intuition that you have. This is the problem with atheist
it's
arguments.
just how most people understand it, but
Yes, and they are taking
it's
intuitions
not a
as
problem.
evidence.
I don't see the problem.
Darkloon, let's agree on one thing.
Just
Let's agree on one
wait.
thing. This statement, the second one, is how most people understand, or at least how most Western people understand omniscience and goodness. Let's
It.
agree on this point. I can agree
Yeah,
on it.
yeah. That's
How at
right. You
least
agree with me, yeah.
I agree that most Western people understand it this way. Right? We can agree on this. But that is because this is their intuition. Like this is literally their intuition.
Well,
I'm sorry, am I saying something wrong here?
well,
And if I
we
am, can
can
you like tell me using your reason how am I saying something wrong?
we can speculate as to why most people believe certain things, but like that doesn't matter, right? They can
Of
say
course it matters.
like this is how I understand omniscience. This is how I
Darkloon,
understand
of course it
omnibenevolence,
mentions,
right?
of course
And
it
having
matters
those two
how why they
concepts tied
believe things.
together,
Our entire discussion is about why people
we're
believe
talking
things
of
and why intuitions are evidence. You can't just avoid this question, we can speculate why they believe this. If you are basing your arguments on,
I
or
think we're
the
talking
reason,
past each other.
if you are basing your arguments
I
on
think we're
why
talking
people
past each other.
believe
I'm just
things,
saying
okay, finish your point. I'll
there
stop
might
talking.
look. There, I'm, I'm fine with saying that there are intuitions involved in the way people think, their thought process, the way they go through life, and stuff like that, and that could in some way influence um, like the causal process of how they aim to believe what they believe, right? But that's not sort of that's sort of not what I'm saying right now. What I'm saying right now is if they have a given definition, let's say the working definition of omniscience is XYZ and omnibenevolence is some other thing, having those two concepts tied together entails this thing about uh, any occurrence of evil, they would prevent it given some constraints, right? Like given some conditions, right? Like that's just analytically true. It's just true by definition. That's all I tried to say, right? To disprove the claim you made about um, all premises have to be sort of just supported by saying it's my intuition. It's my intuition. Like no, that's not how we support these premises.
Let me address 2 points. Firstly, if we accept your definition, right? If we accept that, then the part about that this is
Yeah,
analytically true is correct. If we accept your definition, that is, if
sure.
we accept that, then
Great,
your
great,
point is
great.
correct. But here's the problem for your claim.
Yeah,
When you are
we
making an
are
argument,
in agreement.
we are agreement on one thing. We are still disagreeing on another thing. If we are using this as an argument and as a justification of belief, then you will need to justify those particular definitions. Because if you don't, then that's just
Well,
a baseless
I
claim.
think that
And let me just make one more point here. You are saying that this is something most people would believe, and therefore we should take it seriously, right? this was the point you are making, and it's wrong. It's obviously wrong, and you can interrupt me later. But let me speak first regarding
I
this.
don't. I don't think I'm. I don't think I ever said that. I don't think I ever said that.
It's what
I'm
you
not
were
sure what
implying.
that's in reference to.
I think you said that you said as a justification of this particular premise that this is something what most people would accept.
Oh
Here's
yeah.
the
Oh yeah. I
problem.
said let's just grant for the sake of argument. Yeah. Let's just grant for the sake of argument. It could be a minority view, like on like let's say just one person. They have a given definition, and on their term usage, it follows that a given thing is true. Like
We agreed
that's
on the
fine too.
point, Dark
I didn't
Moon.
mean to imply it.
We agreed on the point that if we accept the definition given here and we accept those things, then this point would work.
Right.
This is something we agreed on.
Exactly. So
Here's the problem with your claim.
no.
When you are
Wait. Just this is just a nitpick, right? Just a nitpick. But you said earlier that all the premises have to be supported by intuitions or something like that. Something like that. That's why I mentioned this in the first place. I didn't
I
mean
was
to go
right in
directly
that.
to
Darkloom,
this.
I was right in that. And I'll explain
Yeah.
why I was right
Wait,
in that.
what? Wait, that's
Yes.
a contradiction. That's a contradiction.
No, it's not
How
a
is it not a
contradiction.
contradiction?
It's not a contradiction, and I'll
You're
explain
saying
why.
that
I will
premise
explain
can
why.
be
Dark
analytically
Moon.
true
Okay, repeat.
and right. You said all the premises have to be supported by just appealing to intuitions, and here I give you an example where you can just say the premise is analytically true. It's true by definition. So don't you see how that's a contradiction where all the premises are supported by intuitions, and it's not the case that all premises are supported by intuitions?
I'll explain why there is no contradiction involved here. If you are not using this,
Wait.
I
Don't
will
you
explain.
agree? If
I am
I said
explaining
all
the problem with
premises
your
are
view.
supported by
Darkloom, I let you make your point, and now I'm explaining the problem with your view, and it's a very simple problem. Because I think you are slightly
I don't think you're
misunderstanding.
addressing my point. I don't think you're addressing my point.
You didn't let
Could
me
you
speak. How am I
represent
supposed to
the
address
thing I just said?
Darkloon? If I speak for
You
at least 10,
reproduce.
20 seconds,
Sorry.
if I speak for at least 20 seconds, you can say I'm not
Okay,
addressing
if you're
your point.
going to address what I said, you're going to address what I said.
Yes. Can I?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. If you are not using this definition as evidence or an argument, right, of omniscience, then this can be analytically true. In that case, if it is not used as an argument or evidence, it does not need intuitions to justify it. But if you are going to use this as an argument or evidence, then it will need intuitions. For instance, the intuition that a wholly good being would prevent, or basically, preventing evil is a part of being good. If you are using this as evidence, if you believe something, this is something rational or true, then you will need to justify this intuition. However, if you are not using this as evidence or as something true, just as an analytical claim, right? In that case, it's not being used as evidence. In that case, you don't need intuitions to justify it. But if you are going to use this as an argument, if you use this premise as an argument when arguing against me, you are still assuming, you are still using the intuition that preventing evil is part of being good. In that case, I will ask you to justify this intuition. Did you understand my point now?
You no, sorry, I didn't follow all of that. But when you say whether you need to justify it, like need, I already told you this, but need is with respect to a given goal, right? Like when I told you like you need to give me an argument for this and that, it's because I have the goal of being convinced by these the truth of P1 and P2, right? Like when you like I didn't catch all of that, but also I think we've gone way off track, and I don't think that this is even like all that relevant.
Darkloom, I think this is
I do
extremely
think
relevant.
that you contradict yourself.
I did not contradict myself. I gave a
Sorry?
response. I did not contradict myself.
Okay.
And I explained why I did not, but you did not respond to that. You just sidestepped all of what I said earlier.
Agree?
Why did you sidestep all of that?
Well,
if you did not understand it, I can repeat it again.
I didn't mean.
I gave a reason why my beliefs are not contradictory.
You mentioned.
Darkloon, just let me finish
I
this point.
did say that I did.
I gave
To
a
be
very...
fair, I did say I didn't follow all of that, and I said when you mentioned
Then let me repeat it again.
like my mind.
Darkloon,
No, no,
this
no, no,
entire
no.
discussion is
No, I
based on
said when you mentioned
epistemology.
meeting.
You said I am contradicting myself. I
Sorry.
gave a response to it. You said you did
Yeah,
not
yeah.
understand it, so let me clarify.
Do you know what?
So let me clarify. You did not understand
Well,
it.
do you know what contradiction? Okay.
Let me clarify it. I said earlier, any argument of basically all atheist arguments are based on intuitions, right? This is a claim I made earlier. You brought this particular example as an argument or as a premise that is
Right.
not based on intuition. Here is the problem with this claim. If this premise is just blanketly used without it being used as evidence, if we just look at analytically, this does not need intuitions. But if you are going to use this, in that case, it does not need intuitions to be at least acceptable or consistent. But if you are going to use this premise as evidence or you are believing this, and I am assuming that we are both rational people who need some basis or justification or standard for their beliefs, if you are believing this particular premise, then it has an intuition involved. The intuition is that part of being good is preventing evil. This is something which you agreed on earlier. If you are believing this particular premise to be true, let me finish this point. If you are believing this particular premise,
intuition involved.
Yes.
Wait.
Part of being good is preventing evil.
Disagree with that. I already granted to you that in basically all of life, like whether it be this premise of this argument or I don't know, going out to a restaurant or something, like there are intuitions involved in everything, right? Like I'm fine with saying that.
You are not agreeing with what I
if that's all you're
specifically
saying,
said,
I'm fine
Darkloon. You said you agreed with me on one particular point, that being the belief that part of being evil is being good is preventing evil. You agreed this is an intuition, and that intuition is involved in this premise. If you are believing this particular premise, you are believing in that intuition. You are literally using intuitions as evidence.
You can say that given my term usage, given what I mean by this thing, it follows this other thing, right? Like that's just semantics, right?
No, it's not semantics.
There's any mention of intuitions there.
Darkloon, whether you speak any English, whether you any language, whether you use this terminology or not, you believe a particular thing, that part of being good is preventing evil. This is a belief that you have, and the only justification for this belief is intuition.
That may be the case. I'm saying
that is the case. There is literally the only justification you have for this is intuition. If you have something else, go ahead. Like, present it here.
Okay, well, I'm willing to agree to disagree on this because this is not even like interesting. But yeah, basically my whole thing is there are certain like premises that can be just true by definition. You can say, hey, given this definition, like the definition of God that you gave, we can use this as a working definition, and I'm fine with saying, hey, given this definition, it's definitionally true that God has an IQ over 1 because you said he's intelligent or something. Like you know what I mean? Like even though someone could use a different definition, even though okay, you can say there are intuitions involved in some way. Like I'm fine with saying that. I'm fine with saying there are intuitions involved in like basically everything we do, right? So I'm not even sure that I disagree with that if that's all you were claiming, but so yeah, that's my whole thing, and I kind of want to go back to the whole thing because I know if you're willing to move on from this because I don't think there's anything else I have to say on this topic.
I'll make a last point on this.
Or if you want to...
I will make one last point on this and then you can respond. You are trying to make this look like this is an argument about semantics. It's not. And that people use, you are agreeing that people use... Let me finish this point, Darkloon. You said that you mentioned this multiple times that people use intuitions and multiple other things. But you are not acknowledging the point that you are using intuitions in this argument. In fact, atheists use intuitions in all their arguments.
I'm not sure that I am.
So you don't
I'm saying
believe
it's
that
not
part of
entail.
being good is preventing evil? Do you believe this or do you not believe this?
Well, whether I do or not is not. That's not.
This
It's
is
not
part
relevant.
of your argument.
The point
This is an argument you.
it doesn't need to. It doesn't need.
Darkloon,
The
this
point
is
is,
an argument you
there's
are
no.
using and you are saying you don't even believe it. Then why should I?
Sorry.
This is an
Could you
argument.
repeat
This is
that?
a premise from an argument that you are using, and you are saying you are not sure you even believe this.
Right.
If you don't, then why should I? Why should anyone else?
No. That was in response to something you said. Like, I'm not sure that. Sorry, I didn't. I forgot. But you mentioned something that I disagreed with. But my whole point was you can just say it's
Do you
analytically
agree
true.
with the premise you
Honestly,
posted or not?
I kind of. Sorry.
Do you agree with the premise that you posted or not? Like, do you think this is correct or rational? Do you believe this premise?
Yeah. It's analytically true. It's given.
Not just
given my
analytically
definitions
true.
of these things.
Then why do you believe your definitions?
Right.
Like, why do you believe the definition that you believe?
What do you mean? Why do I believe it?
Because people can take different definitions.
Like,
you can believe that
yeah, I agree.
part of
People
being
can
good.
I
That
agree.
preventing
I agree.
evil is
People can
not a
take
part of
different
being good.
definitions.
What?
Sorry?
I didn't hear the last part you said.
I agree that people can use different definitions. I'm not saying like if you don't use the definition, you're like you go to hell or something. Like I don't know. Like we have different meanings. I agree.
But you believe that particular
But
definition,
if you
right?
use,
if you are
if you
using
understand
this
this,
argument,
if you understand this concept in the same way, which my intuition, okay, my intuition here, maybe I don't have data on this, but I think most people share my concept. And if I talk to those people, like they're gonna say, yeah, it seems true, and then we go on to premise 2. So
Dark
like
Moon,
we can agree to disagree on this. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just make one more point here. There are two possible justifications for this particular premise that you have given here, or that we have both mentioned here. Either that it's intuition, which I said, or that most people believe it, which is what you said. Are
Wait. Sorry. When you say justify, what do you mean exactly?
Needing a reason to believe something is true. Right?
Right,
Don't
like
we need
raise the
justification for our
probability
beliefs?
of the proposition being true, right?
Darkloon, suppose someone comes to you and tells you X is true, whatever X is. Wouldn't you need any reason for thinking that X is true, or are you just going to blindly accept what anyone tells you? You will need a reason, a justification for believing X is true, right? Or believing X is wrong, for that matter.
Depends on the context, but yeah, probably most of the time I would say something like that. Yeah.
Darkloon, what is the justification of this premise? Because so far there are only two possible ones that have been discussed here. Either it's intuition, or it's what most people would obviously believe, or you ask them, they believe it. What is the justification you need for this particular?
Don't you agree that it could be analytically true? Don't you agree that it could be analytically true?
Darkloon, you are saying whether I agree it could be
analytically true or not.
We are not discussing what could be or what could not be. We are discussing what is. Conceivably,
don't you agree that it could be analytically true? Yes or no? Sorry?
It is a consistent statement.
My audio is bad probably because
Darkloon, it is a consistent statement. But just because something is consistent, like, is that sufficient for believing something is true? Because I don't think it is. Most atheists don't think it is. Most people don't think it is.
You agree it could be analytically true? Agreeing with me, right?
It is analytically consistent. That is what I will agree with. It is a consistent statement. That is something I will agree with.
Yeah, right. You can use different terms, but we mean the same thing. Like we're not even disagreeing on this. Like so we can go back to the main topic.
I think you are sidestepping a point here. I think you are sidestepping a simple point here. And let me just make it, and then you can.
I don't think this is relevant, but go ahead.
I think it is relevant, and I'll explain why.
Yeah, go ahead.
This goes to the justification of beliefs. This definition,
No, it
if
was a nitpick. It was my
it's
nitpick.
not a nitpick, let me explain this point. This second statement that
Okay,
you
go
have
ahead.
posted here, it's something that if someone believes, right, they would need a reason to think it. Whether that reason it's analytically true or not, you would still need a reason to believe it. And part of believing this statement would be believing the definition that part of being good is preventing evil. I am saying there is no justification for that other than intuitions, and if you are believing that, you or other people who are believing that are just using their intuitions. You are not agreeing to this point. You are saying it's just something
Justification
people
for what?
believe.
Justification for what?
The belief that part
Justification
of
for
being
what?
the belief that part of being good is preventing evil.
That's just a definitional thing, right?
But you either believe it's true or you believe it's false, right? If you believe it's false, then
Right.
this statement
Yeah,
fails.
given definition, it's true. You can say given definition, it's true.
Do you believe that
I think
definition
we're
is
going in
correct or not?
circles, right? Like,
Dark
but
Loon, do you believe that definition is correct or not? Is it correct? Is it not
I
correct?
don't know what that means, but
You don't
I
know
know what
what
that
this
means.
statement
A
means.
correct
Do you
definition,
believe
but
that definition is correct or not?
what you mean by that? I know what you mean by that, but I know what you mean by that. I know what you mean by that. But look,
This
I can say
statement is based on
like
a
most people
definition.
mean this
Dark Loon,
when they talk about.
I'm speaking in plain English. This statement that you gave is based on one definition, that part of being good is preventing evil. Do you believe this particular statement, part of being good is preventing evil? Is it true or is it not true? And if you do believe that, why do
I'm
you
fine
believe
with
that?
that. I'm fine with the definition.
Whether you're
I'm
fine or
fine with.
not, right
I'm
now,
fine with
this
that.
is
Yeah.
part Dark Loon. We are discussing what justifications do we have for our beliefs and what are we using as justifications. Whether you are fine with
I don't
it
think
or not
definitions
fine
are
with it,
propositional. That's the hang up. But go ahead.
whether you are fine with something or not fine with something, it's a different topic. I am asking you, why do you believe that part of being good is preventing evil? Like this is something. This is a
Why do I
definition,
have a
right?
certain definition?
Yes. Why do
You're
you believe
asking
this
why I
is
have a
true?
certain definition.
This is not just a semantical point. It's an
Why? Why are you asking
ontological
like?
point. It's not just semantics. It's
It is
ontological.
semantics. How is this not
No, it's
semantics? Talking
not.
about definitions.
Let me explain why it's not.
It's not interesting to me, but
Let me explain why it's not just semantics. Because
what definitions are
either
not
part of being
semantics?
good is preventing evil or it's not. One of these two things has to be true necessarily to avoid a
Well,
logical contradictions. Like either, and this is
I can
ontologically
tell
the case,
you.
either part of being true is preventing evil or part of being good is not preventing evil. One of these two statements has to be necessarily true. There's simply no way around this. I am asking you,
Right.
why do you believe one of these statements to be
Right.
true and what's your justification for it?
I don't think we're making any headway on this. I'm just repeating myself that like it can be necessarily true given the definition on offer, right?
But when you are
And you
making
didn't
this
disagree. You
argument,
agreed with me on that. You agreed that given. Sorry.
but part of making this argument because you do believe something this is actually true. You do believe this is actually true, right? You do believe part of being good is preventing evil. You do believe this, right?
Yeah, I would agree with P1, but wait, what's your point? What's your
What's
whole
that
point in
agreement
this?
based on?
Are you still going on about the definition thing? Sorry?
You believe, right?
I didn't hear you. Sorry. Did you?
Let me explain again.
I believe what?
You believe that part of being good is preventing evil.
Why?
You believe this? If you don't believe this, then your argument is
Sure,
dead.
sure.
Okay,
Sure,
so you
sure,
believe
sure.
this. I'm asking what's your justification for this? Why do you believe this? And is this not intuitions? Because I think it's an intuition.
It's just definitional. It's just definitional. It's just definitional.
You can have two definitions, Dark Loon. You could
Just
have two
definitional.
definitions. You could believe that
Alright.
you can believe in a definition of good that a part of it being
Yes, I
good
don't
is preventing
disagree with that. I
evil.
don't disagree with that. So I don't
Why do
disagree
you
with that. I
believe
don't disagree
this,
with that. So
Dark Loon?
can we move on? Like I don't even disagree with that. What?
I think like I don't like I was only available for an hour as I
Yeah.
told you. It's been an hour. So like
Oh man. But I didn't. Yeah. I
uh
think we got kind of off track, basically mid convo, and
Darkroom,
I never got to like.
you can
We
speak
never
for
got.
you can make a closing
Yeah.
statement for 2 minutes, or I can also make a short closing statement. If you want, you can go first, or if you want, I can go first. Either one is fine with
Listen, I
me.
think we need to continue this. I think we need to continue this some other time. Like, I don't
uh,
think we've gone anywhere because we
I am
kind of went
free on
off track
Sundays,
mid
Darkroom.
convo, right?
If you are free next Sunday, we can do it again. Like I'm only free on Sundays, so we can do it next Sunday.
Oh, um, sure, we can do that. I mean, we'll have to remember to not like go off track mid convo, but yeah, we can do that
Uh, Let me make
next
a
Sunday.
short closing statement and then you can make one. And after that, I will end the recording and I'll share the recording with you as well. Okay,
Right.
so I'll make my short closing statement. I don't think any part of this debate was off track. I think we were entirely discussing intuitions and their role as justification for beliefs and why people believe things. I think Darkloom, the problem with your claim was you are saying you are bringing up a premise and saying that this is just analytically true, which I agree with, but you were also using this as an argument. You believe the premise one that of problem of evil that you mentioned is true. You do believe it's ontologically true. It's a real thing. I was asking the entire time, what's the justification for this belief? I think the justification is clearly just intuitions. I don't think you wanted to admit this point, and which is basically why the debate we spent so much time on this hour. But again, part of believing that particular premise for problem of evil is believing that part of being good is preventing evil. This is a belief that you have, and the only justification you have for it is intuitions. But I don't think you want to admit that the only justification for it is intuitions. So that will be my closing statement. You can make a short closing statement as well, and then I'll end the recording. I'll tell you when I end the recording.
Sure. So I think where we kind of went off track, in my opinion, is we have different, like totally different epistemic standards, or maybe not, where like they're on. Basically, our core disagreement is the role of intuitions, and you really want to incorporate those into your argument and say, you know, the premises of the Kalam cosmological argument are intuitively true, and not believing it is counterintuitive. And I give my response by saying, hey, it's not intuitive to me, so there we go, and end of the argument, debunked, right? But that's not productive. So you kind of wanted to do a switcheroo and say, you used the same thing in all atheist and agnostic arguments, and my response to that was not necessarily, sorry, because you can say it's true on a given definition. It's analytically true, and my impression is that you agreed with that, but you do feel that there is some kind of problem with that, and I'm happy to like go further into that in the next discussion or debate if you'd like. I think we could have like a discussion on how I view intuitions, because I don't view intuitions as just I don't think intuitions justify necessarily. We have to get into the whole what is justification and sort of epistemology discussion, if you'd like. But that's for another time. I think that I was not convinced by either premise of the Kalam cosmological argument, and so like yeah, I'm still agnostic for today. Maybe next week we can you could persuade me or anything like that. But for now, I don't think this was a great showing on your part. But still, I like this discussion debate. You were interested. You had interesting stuff to say, and I'll definitely learn from this. So yeah, this was great, Amar. See you next week.
Yeah, I'm ending the recording